Hey everybody, welcome to Build Sky, the C++ guy. What we're going to do today is pretty much what we did for Linux and Windows, but this time we're going to do it on an Apple Mac. We're going to install the development tools for the Apple Mac. And you can install Eclipse on the Apple Mac, but it has some debugging issues. Apple decided to change the debugger from the industry standard GDB debugger to the LLVM debugger. I believe that's the debugger. And Eclipse, as of I guess about 6 months ago, was not compatible with that debugger. I don't know where it is in that status. So what we're going to do is we're going to install Xcode, and you have to install Xcode even if you want to use Eclipse. But we're going to install Xcode, and in this course, whenever we talk about the Mac, we're going to be talking about using Xcode. And I'm also going to demonstrate to you how to create an Xcode project, C++, again in Xcode. So let's get started. So what you see here is I'm on my Apple Mac. It's actually in a virtualized, using VMware virtualized OSx Ventura 13, and it's going to run a little bit slow, but I'll edit those hesitations out. And what we're going to do is we have to install Xcode. It's very, very simple. Just go down to the App Store. And once the App Store is up and running, now my resolution isn't as high as it could be, so let me make this a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to type Xcode up in the search. And there it is right there, Xcode. Now there's a problem though installing Xcode. If you have an older version of Mac OS, the current Xcode on the App Store may not work with your Mac OS. So you're going to have to find an older one, and Apple makes it very difficult to find an older one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description of this video to show you where to go to get those older versions of Xcode. I might even let you link directly to my Dropbox where I have those Xcodes stored. And you just have to look at the version number, like 10.13 or 13 or 12 or 11, and then you match it with the Xcode version. And then you can just install it. You have to download it, and then you can install it. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to install Xcode by clicking Get and then Install. It's going to ask me for my password. Now, you have to make sure that you have a password. I'm not going to show you my password here or my user ID. So I'm going to pause the video, put that information in, and then it's going to start the download. Okay, so I went ahead and logged in. I had two levels of authentication, so I had to get my phone and the whole bit. It's now asking me, when do you require your password? I'm going to put in never require, because this is a virtualized Mac. If this was not a virtualized Mac, you might go ahead and go ahead and require the password, because who knows who has access to your Mac. So this is going to take a little while because Xcode is not a small piece of software. Then it's going to take some time to install it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to go through a lot of empty time and video watching. And when it comes back, I'll go ahead and restart the video. See you in a little while. Okay, so it finished downloading. You notice that little circle going around. That means it's installing. You might as well go get a sandwich or something because it's going to take some time. But once it's done, I'll come back and I'll show you how to get things set up. All right, looks like it's installed. Let's go ahead and click the Open button. And we can close the App Store. Now, what that install did was it installed not only in the integrated development environment, but it also installed the compiler. Remember, or maybe you don't remember if you didn't watch the Windows version, I actually had a little chart up as to what the hierarchy is, and I'll do the same thing on this video. But the integrated development environment sits on top of the compiler. And then the compiler sits on top of the operating system. So the integrated development environment is just a graphical way of doing coding. However, the compiler is basically all command line. So we're going to go ahead and see that as well. So I'm going to agree to this, put in my password. Okay, now it's going to ask you what other operating systems or devices you're going to want to install. You could click on watchOS if you're going to want to do watchOS apps, and tvOS if you're going to do tvOS. But that's like 7 gigabytes of data, and we're just going to not click on those and just click on the install button. And what it's now doing is it's going to be installing some additional components as it says, and I believe that's the command line tools, but we'll see for sure once it's up and running and we can maybe go and install the command line tools. So let's go ahead and let this finish up. Okay, when the additional components are done installing, Xcode is going to come up. Now, again, this is a virtualized Mac OS, so it takes a couple of seconds. So, okay, so let's go ahead and click continue. And here you go. Now let me see, there used to be a menu option that would have you, that would give you the option to install the command line tools. One of the ways that you can test, let's see what we've got here. Okay, those are all installed. So one of the ways that you can test whether or not the command line tools are installed is to open up your Finder, go to Applications, drop down to Utilities, and open up Terminal. And that's going to allow you to type in some commands. So I'm going to type in GCC. Now, when I type GCC, what used to happen in the past is that if those tools were not installed, it would ask you, would you like to install them? And I think that's what happened in the background. I just installed them. And as you can see, GCC was installed. G++, and that was installed as well. Also notice that it is the C language. It's not the standard C++ or C language. It's the C lang. So it's really not the open source GCC G++. It's the open source C lang. And Apple has also made some changes to the C lang language to support its hardware. So those command line tools are now installed. So I'm going to go to Terminal, quit Terminal. I'm going to close my Finder. And now let's go ahead and create our first Mac C++ application. I'm going to click Create a New Xcode Project. It asks me, what is it that I want to install? Well, I'm going to move over to here and I'm going to click on Mac OS. I'm going to click on Command Line Tool. I'm going to click Next. Then I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it CPP Test. Now you have to give it some kind of an organization name. I'm just going to put in my name. And you have to drop down. By default, it's Swift. I'm going to drop down and select C++. You also could select C. If you want, Objective-C is a Apple version of C. And Swift is almost like an interpreted. It's almost like a Python for Apple. It is very, very complicated. They like to make it look like it's very easy. It's really not. To get started, it's very easy, to be fair. But that's a whole new, maybe a whole new playlist that I give to you guys. But for right now, we're going to do C++ and then just click Next. It's going to ask you where you want to put it. You know, for starters, just put it on the desktop, or you could stick it in Documents if you want. But I'm just going to put it on the desktop and click Create. And it's going to work for a couple of seconds. And get repository creation failed. Not sure what that's all about. So I'm going to cancel out of that. Double click on my main. And we see our main code. To build it, I can go up to Product, Build. I can build it for running, testing, profiling. I can just click Build. Or I can just press the play button. And if it hasn't been built yet, Xcode will build it. You can see that that build was successful. And all it does is print hello world. Hopefully that's what it does. So I think the problem here is that the console's not showing. So I'm going to click on this little icon. There it goes, it says show the console. Click on that. And there's the hello world. And because I had the breakpoint there, it's still in debug mode. So let's go ahead and try that again. And it says hello world, so that's great. So you're all set. Now, if you want to install Visual Studio Code, all of the tools that you need have been installed because of Xcode. I'm going to leave Xcode. And what you can do is take a look at the Windows version of this video, the one that shows you how to install the Windows tools, and that'll give you an idea of what you have to do with Visual Studio Code. Again, it's a long drawn-out process. Well, I shouldn't say long drawn out, but it does take a while. There's a lot of work. and you have to download it and then install it, and you have to set up some things. So go ahead and take a look at that video. I'm not going to reproduce it here. You can find it as a chapter marker in the Windows version of this video, installing the development tools. And good luck with that. Hope to see you soon.